Christmas, we know, is just 1 week away, and one thing most Canadians are making do with this year is a smaller budget. In fact, nearly half of Canadian households are planning on having a smaller holiday this year. There's less food and fewer gifts. Simply put, they cannot afford it. And as 2023 comes to a close, pressure is growing on the federal government to do something about the increased cost of everything. So what is the plan? Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, is with us this morning, hopefully with some answers. Great to have you back with us in studio. Welcome back.
Great to be with you.
Minister, I'm hoping today that we can have a conversation where we get some answers and hear from you personally about how this affordability crisis that we're living in is truly understood. I think Canadians have watched, they listened to press conferences, they've seen the announcements, they watched as the grocery CEOs were paraded in and questioned. But my sense is that people are feeling that the Liberals don't get it, that they aren't feeling the tough choices that Canadians are making either to their budgets or in the grocery store. What example, not an announcement, what example can you share that would illustrate that you understand the pain and the pinch that Canadians are feeling at the grocery store when they're doing budgets? How does it look in the Freeland household when we're in a cost of living crisis?
Well, Anne-Marie, I think the thing that, in my regular life, brings the challenge home the most personally to me is that my church, which is around the corner from my house, just up the street from us here, the Church of the Messiah, has a food bank every Wednesday. And the lines have been getting longer. And that is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that we have food banks in Canada, and it's really heartbreaking to see that people really need them. So I am grateful to the really amazing people at the Church of the Messiah who have worked so hard to have a food bank and to support our community. And it kills me that that's something that they need to do, that we need to do.
Yeah, a national report was released recently that the numbers are up at record numbers. There's people who are employed who are using it to buy things like milk and eggs because it's just expensive. I want to give you a real life budget that was provided to our producers by one of their family members. She's a single mom. She has one child that lives with her, and we've got the numbers on a graphic, so it's easier for you and our viewers to follow along. But she makes about $26 an hour, which is above the lowest minimum wage in this country of $14 an hour. In Saskatchewan, in the highest, which is 16.77 in the territories in Yukon. So her weekly take-home after taxes is $801, which works out to about $41,697.76 after taxes. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot higher than the amount that's eligible for your grocery rebate. Those are the people that you called the most vulnerable. But when we break down her expenses, this is where it really hits home. You've got $2,000 for rent, $125 a week in car payment, $145 for car insurance, and then just over $82 for debt repayment. $120 for phone and internet. It works out to around $3,095 a month. That's before gas and before groceries, and leaves just over $100 for the entire month for her and her daughter. But she is not considered vulnerable in the eligibility of this grocery rebate. So how are people like her supposed to survive? And what do you say to Canadians who are in a similar situation? They weren't deemed eligible for this rebate, but they're living really close to the margin.
Do you know how old her child is?
I don't.
So that would be important to understand in kind of thinking about her budget. Mm-hmm. If she has a child in childcare, then I'm glad that we've been able to bring the price of childcare down. In 7 provinces and territories across Canada, childcare is now $10 a day. And in the whole country, it's down 50%. That is a huge savings. Here in Toronto, that's $8,500 per year per child. So that would be significant. And then the other thing is, again, depending on the age of that child.
I should mention, she is 18, which is why we didn't include child care.
The child is 18?
In the list. Yeah.
Okay. So for younger children, and something that has made a huge difference for Canadian families is the Canada Child Benefit, which is indexed to inflation, and that has helped lift 500,000 children and their families out of poverty. But the other thing I would say, I think what was striking about that budget was how much that family is paying for rent. Mm-hmm. And I think that in most families' budgets, the single hardest thing, the thing that sort of makes a difference in affordability of your own life is cost of housing, cost of rent, cost for your mortgage. And that's why this year, this fall, we have been relentless about focusing on housing, housing, housing. Probably the single biggest thing, which received royal assent in those buildings on Friday, was lifting the GST on purpose-built rental. That will get between 200 and 300,000 new apartments built. And that's going to bring down the rent for everybody, for people who have a mortgage. And I don't know about you, Anne-Marie, but I hear from a lot of people who have mortgages, and they're really concerned about what happens when their mortgage comes up for renewal.
Sure.
Interest rates are high. People are anxious about that.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out what to do with their budgets.
Yeah, and so with the fall economic statement, we published for the first time a Canadian mortgage charter. If you have a mortgage and you're worried about it, Google that, because it lists the things that you have a right to ask your bank for when your mortgage comes up for renewal. A couple of examples. You can ask for a longer amortization, and that can help keep your monthly payments down. If you have an insured mortgage, you don't need to re-qualify to go and seek that more, to shop around and maybe get the mortgage from another bank. So those are some concrete things. Maybe the one other concrete thing on housing, because I think this is something that can make a difference right away, is for the first time the federal government is cracking down on Airbnbs. And I mention that because in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. I saw you just did a piece, I think it was about New Brunswick, in some cities in Atlantic Canada. You're seeing Airbnbs crowding people out of the rental market. And with this measure, it is going to make it, where provinces and municipalities want to crack down on Airbnbs, because that's what people want, the federal government is helping. We think that's going to create 20, 30, 40,000 apartments available right away for people to rent.
Which is good, because timing is important. When your team first contacted us about you and I sitting down together, there was mention of us chatting about traditions or doing some baking. Obviously, we're not doing any of that today. But the suggestion about baking got me thinking about something that affects everybody, whether you're renting or you have a mortgage or whether you have a teenager or a young kid, and that is groceries and affordability. So the Consumer Grocery Report, we know, showed us that this year people were paid more than $15,000 for groceries. Shrinkflation means that we're getting less for our money. I don't want to know what, but when will this get better? Because that's what people want to know. It's the timing. And I know with this passing on Friday, the soonest that we've heard of in the coming months, it could change. But people need it to change now. They're pulling stuff out of their grocery carts. They're crossing stuff off grocery lists that their kids like to eat because they can't afford it.
Anne-Marie, I really share that sense of urgency. And I think it's really important for everyone to recognize that things are hard for people in Canada right now. On groceries, the meeting that Francois Philippe and I convened of the grocery CEOs in September, that was important. And that sent an important message to the CEOs and through the whole supply chain for groceries that enough is enough. Prices need to stabilize. And we have seen inflation now. The October numbers was at 3.1%. So inflation stabilizing. As prices stabilize, interest rates will be able to start coming down. Huge relief for people. The changes that you just referred to on Friday with the with the grocery competition law that came into effect on Friday, that is historic. Like, that is a generational change in Canada. I think we all know when you can shop around, you get a better deal. Canadian competition law has really not encouraged that in the grocery sector. We now have a law that is going to bring in a lot more competition and going to crack down on anti-competitive practices. It will help our local grocery stores to fight back, and that is going to really keep prices down, give people more choice, give consumers more power. And I think that's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do, but people, again, are just wondering when. I want to ask you really quickly about time. The Liberals are down in the polls, and Ipsos recently as last week, published some numbers which said 72% of Canadians think that Justin Trudeau needs to step aside. Of the top three people who were named as possible successors, you came out on top alongside of Melanie Joly and Mark Carney. So would you like to lead the Liberal Party of Canada?
I am focused first and foremost on supporting Canadians right now. And you've just pointed out, people need our support. Canadians don't want us focused on ourselves. They want us focused on them. And I am also absolutely supporting our Prime Minister, who is leading our team, doing a really, really great job.
Can they win the next election with him as leader?
Absolutely. But I really have to tell you, Anne-Marie, and journalists never believe this, my focus isn't on the polls. My focus is on my neighbors. My focus is on the Canadians I meet when I travel across the country. My focus is on the great parishioners at Church of the Messiah who run the food bank every Wednesday. And my focus is on the people who are in line there in the cold. That's what, that's like, it sounds so kind of sappy, but truly, when you are put by your fellow Canadians in a position like mine, your job is to wake up every day and think, what are the problems people have, and what can I try to do today to make it better? That's what I focus on.
You've been an elected member of Parliament since 2013. Speaking of your constituents.
10 years.
You've been doing this for 10 years. Is it time for you to make a change? Are you going to run in the next election?
I'm definitely running in the next election.
Definitely running. Last question. What do you think?
Up to my neighbors to decide whether I get reelected.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Hey, happy holidays. Thank you so much for coming in. Great to have you in
Happy
studio.
holidays to you too.
Come back anytime. Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. Whoops. Thank you for your time today.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.